Hi guys, it's Stephanie, and I wanted to share a little personal story with you today, and ask you, are you wearing the right shoes? Last week I went hiking with my family, and I have five daughters, and two of them are very young, 2 and 4. So, and of course, my husband was with us too. And so the plan was to go and hike a easy trail with my children. Um, there were twofold reasons for this. Two of the reasons were my littlest ones. I didn't want to worry about them falling or any injury or anything like that. But the main one would probably have been myself, actually, if I'm honest, because I have this fear of heights that is crippling. And I actually become so fearful that I begin to shake. I I can hardly even stand up on a chair without getting nervous, and I do sometimes, but I just have always been fearful of heights since I was very young. And if I don't have something solid to hold on to help me up, I become very fearful. And it's an embarrassing thing to me because I feel like I'm so weak in that area and of no help to anyone and become actually a liability to everyone. So it was not necessarily a fun trip for me. Well, anyway, so let me explain. We were supposed to go on the easy trail, but one of the trails that was said to have been easy ended up actually being one of the rugged, intermediate, moderate, I guess moderate trails, which required a lot of climbing up and climbing down and stuff. And this wouldn't have been necessarily terrible, except there was nothing to hang on to in certain areas, and it was muddy from all the rain we'd had the week before, and the water had risen, and there were areas where there was water up to my shins, and there was no dry land to walk on, so you had to try to jump on these rocks or walk through the water. And because we had toddlers, we had to carry them many times. And so, but the thing is because of my fear, I I was having a really hard time. I was actually starting to panic. I was getting teary eyed. I was shaking, and at this point we're like stuck here because we're already out in the middle of the woods, and there's no way out until you make your way out of it. So well, anyway, I had picked shoes that morning that were appropriate for an easy trail. They were not hiking shoes necessarily, and because the terrain was wet and everything was slick, my shoes were slipping on the rocks, and everything was becoming dangerous for me. At least in my mind, I was very, very scared. And of course, I was no help at that time. While I was feeling that fear, I was anxious and worried. I was worried about my little ones. I was worried about me, and I was starting to have a panic attack, actually. And my husband's like, "Come on, you gotta help me here. We gotta do this together." And he's trying to encourage me, but he's getting a little frustrated, of course, because of the way I'm behaving. And I'm embarrassed at myself that I can't pull it together and get it right. And some of you out there might be hikers, and you might think this is no big deal. You could totally do this, but for me, it is a big deal. It's very, very difficult, and it's just one of my weaknesses. And it's not something that I truly enjoy, is going out into the wilderness and hiking through the woods. It's never been my thing, and but I wanted to do it with my family, and I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't want to just like hang out in the park, so we decided we'd take an easy trail and actually do it as a family. Well, we ended up on the wrong trail. So anyway, my shoes were not right. And I think what my point is here is that if I had been wearing the proper shoes, things might have been a lot easier for me and not so scary. Like, I would have felt the grip of the shoe on the ground, and I would have understood that I wasn't going to slip and fall, and that it wasn't going to be as bad as it seemed, I mean, it might have been hard, but it wouldn't have been as worrisome, or I wouldn't have been as anxious as feeling like I was going to slip down this muddy slope, So, and I would have been more help. Well, as I was going on, I started to speak the truth over myself and speak scriptures and ask the Lord and thank him, first of all, that he was keeping me strong, that he was helping me in the midst of it. I was thanking him and asking him for his help, and speaking truth over myself, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and that my legs will not be weak, that I will trust in him, and so I was just trusting in him. And even though it was hard for me, and I was anxious, and it was difficult, he did help me, and I did begin to be able to actually help my little ones as well. So my husband wasn't doing everything, and I was carrying them through the water and everything, even though I felt like I was going to slip and fall the whole time. And it was one of those things where it's like, it was my fault. I wore the wrong shoes, didn't realize what kind of situation I was going to end up in. And that's my point also, is we don't always know how difficult things are going to get in our lives, or what we're going to go through. So it's important to be prepared at all the times. So we need to be, have our feet shod with the preparation of peace, and of course the whole armor of God. But that preparation of peace, if I had the proper shoes, how much more peace would I have had in that situation, knowing that I was wearing the right shoes and it was going to help me, and that I didn't have to rely on myself to try to hold myself up while I'm walking down this muddy slope, or climbing up a muddy slope. So one of the verses I wanted to bring up is Philippians 4:6-7. And it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." So we can have the peace of God when we come to him with thanksgiving and prayer. So it's important to remember that. And as I began to thank him and pray, that's when the peace began to come, even in the midst of not being fully prepared the way that I should have been. So there was that part of it, but also it was funny because I've been reading this book, The Armor of God, and it came to the portion of peace this week. So it was like the Lord was using that as an illustration for me for everything that was in this book. And so I definitely recommend this book to anyone who wants to learn more about the armor of God. It gives you some really deep insight. And it's called The Armor of God, and it's by Pricilla Shirer. And one of the things